Good morning, everyone, especially to you, Sir Tikasan. I am Riza Beitoroba, and my partner is Ma'am Clary Joy Domaglio. Our topic is all about curriculum. I will be the one to discuss with you the curriculum, nature, concepts, and purposes, while Ma'am Clary Joy will discuss to you the curriculum design strategies and approaches. So I will now start my report. Curriculum concepts, nature, and purposes. Curriculum. The word curriculum began as a Latin word which means a race or the course of a race, which in turn derives from the verb currere, meaning to run or to proceed. The concept of curriculum is as dynamic as the changes that occur in society. In its narrow sense, curriculum is viewed merely as a listing of subjects to be taught in school. In a broader sense, it reflects to the total learning experiences of individuals, not only in schools but in society as well. What is curriculum? What is its purpose? What is its nature? So these are the fundamental questions that will be addressed in this presentation. There are many definitions of curriculum. Because of this, the concept of curriculum is sometimes characterized as fragmentary, elusive, and confusing. However, the numerous definitions indicate dynamism that connotes diverse interpretation of what curriculum is all about. Definitions are influenced by modes of thoughts, pedagogies, political as well as cultural experiences. Let us study some of these definitions. Traditional points of view of curriculum. In the early years of 20th century, the traditional concepts held of the curriculum is that it is a body of subjects or subject matter prepared by the teachers for the students to learn. It was synonymous to the course of study and syllabus. Robert M. Hutchins views curriculum as permanent studies, where the rule of grammar, reading, rhetoric, and logic and mathematics for basic education are emphasized. Arthur Bestor believed that the mission of the school should be intellectual training, hence curriculum should focus on the fundamental intellectual disciplines of grammar, literature, and writing. It should also include mathematics, science, history, and foreign language. This definition leads us to the view of Joseph Schwab that discipline is the sole source of curriculum. Thus, in our education system, curriculum is divided into chunks of knowledge we call subject areas in basic education, such as English, mathematics, science, social studies, and others. In college, discipline may include humanities, sciences, languages, and many more. On the other hand, in the progressive points of view, a listing of school subjects, syllabi, course of study, and list of courses or specific discipline do not make a curriculum. This can only be called curriculum if the written materials are actualized by the learner. Broadly speaking, curriculum is defined as the total learning experiences of the individual. This definition is anchored on John Lewis' definition of experience and education. He believed reflective thinking is a means that unifies curricular elements. Thought is not derived from action but tested by application. For Caswell and Campbell, curriculum is an experience all experiences children have under the guidance of teachers. This definition is shared by Smith, Stanley, and Shores when they define curriculum as a sequence of potential experiences set up in the schools for the purpose of disciplining children and youth in group ways of thinking and acting. For Mars and Willis, on the other hand, view curriculum as all the experiences in the classroom, which are planned and enacted by the teacher and also learned by the students. So basically, the main difference between the two lies in where the student learning is centered. Traditional school focus on the teacher and what they teach, while progressive school focus on the students and how they can learn. So from the various definitions and concepts presented, it is clear that curriculum is a dynamic process. Development connotes changes which are systematic. A change for the better means any alteration, modification, or improvement of existing condition. To produce positive changes, development should be purposeful, planned, and progressive. This is how curriculum evolves. Let us look at the two models of curriculum development of concepts of Ralph Tyler and Hilba Taba. Ralph Tyler model or the four basic principles. This is also known as the Tyler's rationale. He posited four fundamental questions or principles in examining any curriculum in schools. These four, these four fundamental principles are as follows. What educational purposes should be the school seek to attain? What educational experiences can be provided that are likely to attain these purposes? How can these educational experiences be effectively organized? And for number four, how can we determine whether these purposes are being attained or not? In summary, Tyler's model showed that in curriculum development, the following considerations should be made. Purposes of the school, educational experiences related to the purposes, organization of the experiences, and evaluation of the experiences. On the other hand, Hilda Taba improve on Tyler's rationale by making a linear model. She believed that teachers who teach or implement a curriculum should participate in developing it. Her advocacy was commonly called the grassroots approach. She presented seven major steps to her model where teachers could have a major input. These steps are as follows. Diagnosis of learners' needs and expectation of the larger society, formulation of learning objectives, selection of learning content, organization of learning content, selection of learning experiences, organization of learning activities, and determination of what to evaluate and the means of doing it. As you look into the curriculum models, there are three interacting processes in curriculum development. These are planning, implementing, and evaluating. Okay, so we will proceed with the types of curriculum operating in schools. So from the various concepts given, Alan Blathorn in 2000 described seven types of curriculum operating in schools. So number one, recommended curriculum. These are proposed by scholars and professional organizations. So professional organizations like DepEd, CHED, and DOST. So written curriculum, it appears in school, district divisions, or country documents. So this includes documents, course of study, or syllabi handed down to the school's division, district, departments, or colleges for implementation. The taught curriculum, what teachers implement or deliver in the classroom and schools. So these are varied activities that are implemented in order to arrive at the objectives or purposes of the written curriculum. For number four, the supported curriculum. These are resources, textbook, computers, audiovisual materials, which supports and help in the implementation of the curriculum. Assess curriculum, that which is tested and evaluated. This refers to a tested or evaluated curriculum. At the duration and end of the teaching episodes, series of evaluation are being done by the teachers to determine the extent of teaching or to tell if the students are progressing. We also have the learned curriculum, what the students actually learn and what is measured. This refers to the learning outcomes achieved by the students. For number seven, the hidden curriculum or the unintended curriculum. There are lots of hidden curricula that inspire the schools. Peer influence, school environment, physical condition, teacher-learner interaction. Mode of the teacher and many factors make up the hidden curriculum. To sum it up, curriculum is not only about a course or a simple listing of subjects, but it is the total experience of students as indicated by the seven types of curriculum. So those are the types of curriculum in the school. So we will now move on to the major foundations of curriculum. Let us now look into the major foundations of curriculum. Debates continue on what curriculum is and its basic foundation. The commonly accepted foundation include philosophical, historical, psychological, and social. Let us examine briefly how each knowledge area provides the foundation to curriculum. So the philosophical foundations of curriculum. Philosophy provides educators, teachers, and curriculum makers with framework for planning, implementing, and evaluating curriculum in schools. It helps in answering what schools are for, what subjects are important, how students should learn, and what materials and methods should be used. In decision making, philosophy provides the starting point will be used for the succeeding decision making. There are four educational philosophies: coordinated in Hankins in 2004. So we have here the four educational and the aim of the education of these four educational philosophies. For number one, perennialism, to educate the rational person, to cultivate the intellect. Essentialism, to promote the intellect growth of the individual. Progressivism, to promote democratic and social living. And for reconstructionism, to improve and reconstruct society, education for change. We also have the role of education. For the role of education, perennialism believes that teachers help students think with reason. For essentialism, the teacher is the sole authority in his or her subject area or field of specialization. For progressivism, knowledge leads to growth and development of lifelong learners who actively learn by doing. And for number four, reconstructionism, teachers act as agent of change and reform in various educational projects, including research. For the focus in the curriculum, perennialism focuses on the classical subjects. Literary analysis and curriculum is constant. For essentialism, essential skills of the 3 Rs and essential subjects of English, science, history, math, and foreign languages. For progressivism, subjects are interdisciplinary, integrative, and interactive. Curriculum is focused on student needs, human problems, and affairs. For constructionism, it focuses on the present and future trends and issues of national and international interest. Okay, so you can see that educational philosophy lays the strong foundation of any curriculum. A curriculum planner or specialist, a curriculum implementer or the teacher, school administrator or curriculum evaluator, whether school-based or externally based, anchor his or her decision-making process in a sound philosophy. Now we will move on to historical foundations of curriculum. Curriculum theorists and how they view curriculum from a historical perspective. Why it is important to know the historical foundations of curriculum? Because curriculum is not an old field. Majority of the scholars would place its beginning in 1918 with the publication of Franklin Babbitt's book, The Curriculum. Here we present several curriculum theorists and how they view curriculum from a historical perspective. They are presented chronologically from the time of Babbitt in the year 1676 to 1956 to Ralph Tyler in 1902 to 1994. Okay. So Franklin Babbitt in 1876 to 1956, he presented curriculum as a science that emphasized on students' need. Curriculum prepares students for adult life. To Babbitt, objectives with corresponding activities should be grouped and sequenced. This can only be done if instructional objectives are clarified. Where Charters, to him, curriculum is a science. It gives emphasis on student needs. The listing of objectives and matching these with corresponding activities ensures that the content or subject matter is related to objectives. The subject matter and the activities are planned by the teachers. In the year 1871 to 1965, William Kilpatrick, for him, a curricula are purposeful activities which are child-centered. The purpose of curriculum is child development and growth. He introduced the project method where teacher and student planned activities. For Harold Rugg in 1886 to 1960, curriculum should develop the whole child. It is child-centered and should produce outcomes. He also emphasized social studies and the teacher plans curriculum in advance. Hollis Caswell, in the year 1901 to 1989, sees curriculum as organized around social functions of themes, organized knowledge, and learners' interest. He believes that curriculum is a set of experiences. Subject matter is developed around social functions and learners' interest. For Ralph Tyler in the year 1902 to 1994, he believes that curriculum is a science and an extension of school philosophy. It is based on student needs and interest. To him, curriculum is always related to instruction. Subject matter is organized in terms of knowledge, skills, and values. The process emphasizes problem solving. The curriculum aims to educate generalists and not specialists. So the historical development shows the different changes in purposes, principles, and content of the curriculum. We'll discuss the psychological foundations of curriculum. Psychology provides a basis for the teaching and learning processes. So these are the theories of learning that influence the psychological foundations of curriculum. Number one, the behaviorist psychology, Mechanism by Edward Thorndike, which influenced Tyler and Taba, the well-known curricularists. Classical conditioning by Ivan Pavlov, operant conditioning by B.F. Skinner, modeling and observation theory by Bandura, hierarchical learning by Robert Gunn. We have the cognitive psychology, so we have the cognitive development stages by Jean Piaget, social constructivism by Lev Watsky, multiple intelligence by Howard Gardner, learning styles by Felder and Silverman, emotional intelligence by Daniel Goleman. For humanistic psychology, humanist psychologists are considered with how learners can develop their human potential. We have the Gestalt theory of human needs for self-actualizing persons by Maslow, and by Carl Rogers' non-directive lines. Okay, so the last foundation of education is the social foundation of education. So school exists within the social context. In considering the social foundation of curriculum, we must recognize that schools are the only one of the many institutions that educate society. The home, the family, community likewise educate the people in the society. But schools are formal institutions that address more complex and interrelated societies and the world. The relationship of curriculum and the society is mutual and encompassing. Hence, to be relevant, the curricula should reflect and preserve the culture of society and its aspiration. At the same time, society should also imbibe the changes brought about by the formal institution called schools. So, so that ends my report. Ma'am Clary Joy will have the continuation of our topic.
This time, we will going to discuss the curriculum designs, strategies, and approaches. Curriculum design. It is a term used to describe the purposeful, deliberate, and systematic organization of curriculum within a class or a course. In other words, it is a way for teachers to plan the instruction. So as a teacher, one has to be a curriculum designer, a curriculum implementer, and a curriculum evaluator. Every single day in our classroom discussion, a teacher plans, implements, and evaluates the curriculum in a school. When teachers design the curriculum, they will going to identify what will be done, who will do it, and what schedule to follow. Curriculum design models. So approaches to curriculum design, we have the two, the subject-centered and the learner-centered. Under in subject-centered, we have the subject design, the discipline design, the correlation design, the broad field or the interdisciplinary design. On the other hand, in the learner-centered, we have the child-centered, the experience-centered, and humanistic. Subject-centered design. This model focuses on the content of the curriculum. The subject-centered design corresponds mostly to the textbook written for the specific subject. The school divides the school hours to the different subject areas. Subject design is the oldest and so far the most familiar design for teacher, parents, and other laymen. According to the advocates, subject design has an advantage because it is easy to deliver. Books and other instructional materials are commercially available. In the Philippine educational system, the number of subjects in elementary is fewer than the secondary level. In the college, the number of subjects is based on the programs being pursued. However, in subject designs, sometimes learning is so compartmentalized It focuses so much on the content that it forgets the natural tendencies, interests, and experiences of the students. The teacher gives us so much content and information according to the subject. Discipline design. Discipline design is somewhat related to subject design. However, while the subject design centers only on the cluster of content, the discipline design focuses on the academic discipline. It refers to the specific knowledge learned through a method which is used to study specific content of their fields. For example, if you are studying biology, you need also to learn how the biologists learn. When you are studying mathematics, you also learn how the mathematicians learn. In the same manner, teachers should teach how the scholars or the students in the discipline will convey the particular knowledge. It is often used in college, but not in elementary and secondary levels. Correlation design comes from core, correlated curriculum design that links separate subjects designs in order to reduce fragmentation. Subjects are related to one another, but each subject maintains its identity. This is commonly found in the university level, where students need expertise in specific subjects. This design combine or integrate only two subjects. For example, the biochemistry. This is the combination of the biology and the chemistry. This design helped the students to see the connection between the two subjects. Broad field design. While the correlation design is the combination of two subjects, and broad field design, it is the combination of two or more related subjects into a single broad field. The purpose of this design is to give emphasis to the relationship between subjects and help the students to see the connections between the subjects. It is also made to prevent compartmentalization of subjects and integrate the contents that are related to each other. The learner-centered design. Child-centered design. It is anchored in the needs and interests of the child. The learner is not considered as passive individual, but as one who engages with his or her environment. One's learning by doing. Learners actively create, construct meanings, and understanding. In this child-centered design, the teachers provides opportunities for the students to learn independently and from one another. The students participate more actively in the discussion and they take responsibility of what they learn. With this, students gain an understanding of their own learning styles. Experience-centered design. Child remains to be the focus. The interests and the needs of the learners cannot be pre-planned. Experiences are the starting point of the curriculum. Learners are made to choose from the various activities. As a teachers, we should provide the equal opportunities or activities to the students that could help them develop through experiences. In a classroom setting, the students have a different interests, or should we say that as we provide activities, we will consider the multiple intelligences for the student to discover their own learning style through learning experiences. Humanistic design. Development of self is the ultimate goal of this design. Positive self-concept and interpersonal skills. Integration of thinking, feeling, and doing. This curriculum focuses on the development and realization of the learners or the students as a complete entity. According to experts, that if education succeeds in the development of the needs, interests, and aptitudes of individual, the students will willingly cooperate with others rather than conflicting ones. This curriculum believes that education is good for a person is also best for the well-being of the nation. The expectation of this curriculum is a healthier attitude towards self, peers, and learning. Let's proceed to problem-centered design. Problem-centered design. It draws on the social problems, needs, interests, and abilities of the learners. Various problems are given emphasis. In this curriculum, the subject boundaries and must be based on the needs, concerns, and abilities of the students. This design provides learning an environment in which competence is encouraged not primarily by imparting knowledge but through encouraging an inquisitive style of learning. It helps develop the critical and creative thinking skills of the students, at the same time problem finding and problem solving skills. This curriculum design exposed the students to real-life issues which help them develop skills that are transferable to the real world. Life situation design. What makes this design unique is that the contents are organized in ways that allow students to clearly view problems areas clearly. It uses the past and present experience of the learners as a means to analyze the basic areas of living. As a starting point, the pressing immediate problems of the society and the students' existing problems or concerns are utilized. This design focuses on a problem-solving procedures. The connection of the subject matter to real-life situation increases the relevance of the curriculum. Another example of the problem-centered design is the core design. It centers on the general education problem and the problems that are based on the common human activities. The central focus of the core design includes the common needs, problems, and concerns of the learner. There are ways on how to proceed following a core design of a curriculum. It is popularized by Founds and Bossing in 1959. Here are the following ways. Number one is the problem is selected by either the teacher or the students. A group consensus is made to identify the important problem and interests of the class. Problems are selected on the basis of developed criteria for selection. The problem is clearly stated and defined. Areas of the study are decided, including dividing the class either by individual or by group. Needed information is listed and discussed. Resources for obtaining information are listed and discussed as well. Information is obtained and organized. Information is analyzed and interpreted. Tentative conclusions are stated and tested. A report is presented to the class on an individual or a group basis. Conclusions are evaluated. New avenues of exploration toward further problem solving are examined. Approaches to the curriculum design. The three major curriculum design models, which are the subject-centered design, the learner-centered design, and the problem-centered designs, are implemented through the different approaches that are accepted by the teachers and curriculum practitioners. How the design is utilized becomes the approach to the curriculum. Subject-centered approach. Anchored in the curriculum design which prescribes different and separate subjects into one broad field. This approach considers the following. The primary focus is a subject matter. The emphasis is on bits and pieces of information which are detached from life. The continuing pursuit of learning outside the school is not emphasized. Learning should only take place inside the classroom. The subject matter serves as a means of identifying problems and living. The example of this approach is when the school aims to produce best graduates, the learners must excel in all academic fields in order to be on the top rank. Everyone must master the subject matter. The higher the level of cognitive intelligence, the better for the learner. The school gives emphasis on the intellectual development and set aside emotional and psychomotor development. Success means mastery of the subject matter. Child or learner-centered approach. This approach to curriculum design is based on the underlying philosophy that the child is the center of the educational process. Curriculum is constructed based on the needs, interests, purposes, and abilities of the learners. Curriculum is also built upon the learner's knowledge, skills, learning, and potentials. When the school is anchored in the theory of multiple intelligences in all its curricular and co-curricular activities, every classroom is made up of activity centers where the children are given time and opportunities to hone their skills and capacities. The activities of every learners are differentiated according to the student's abilities, interests, and needs. Each child is considered important, and each capacity is respected. Learners are not compared in one another. Learners' own performance are compared against target which they set for themselves. The school does not believe in failure, but rather in success. The teacher's task is to guide the learner to what he or she would like to accomplish. All throughout the year, the learner is the center of the education. Problem-centered approach. This approach is based on a curriculum design which assumes that in the process of living, children experience problems. Thus, problem solving enables the learners to become increasingly able to achieve complete or total development as individuals. The school believes that a learner should be trained to solve real-life problems that come about because of the needs, interests, and abilities of the learners. Most of the school activities revolve around solutions to problems like poverty, drug problems, deterioration of positive values, environmental concerns, and many more. Since the school is using problem-centered approach, case study as a method of teaching is popularly utilized. Practical work as a solution to the problem is also used. Thus, development of business skills, social skills, construction skills to solve specific problems are given also the emphasis. Those are the three curricular design approaches, and they are distinct from each other. Each design approach gives the school a special character. However, most of the implementers meld the different designs in their school. And that ends our report. Together with Ma'am Riza May Turuba, I am Clara Joy E. Dumagyo. Thank you for listening and God bless us all.